Jumping after the demon caster, Zhilizhen admitted that she was afraid that the ringing of the bell wouldn't be loud enough, and so she had to ring it several times. After praising the girl, Shanton said that he wondered if the Li consortium was satisfied with his surprise. And when Li Zhen asked the man why he was doing this, the demon caster stopped abruptly. A long, long time ago, his mother married a member of the Li consortium for the sake of her ailing husband. He did get better at first, but not for long. A few years after the wedding, Shenton's sick father died. The mother raised her son in the Li family and afterward fell in love with the young teacher and wanted to marry again. In fact, it's just human nature. But the Li consortium believes that a woman who marries a consortium member will be a member for the rest of her life. And if Shenton's mother marries again, it will be a disgrace to the entire Li family. Well, you can easily guess what happened next. Later, the Li consortium sent someone to drag Shenton's mother outside the fortress and bury her alive. Even the demon caster himself still doesn't know where her body lies. They were walking down the same street that Zhilizhen and the man in the cylinder were now walking down. But what is the crime of the other inhabitants of this fortress? A familiar voice came from a portal that had suddenly appeared. Turning back to his longtime acquaintance, the demon caster wondered what it was she was hiding behind the door for. Let her come out and say hello to her friends. After leaving the portal, Luo Xinyu said that she was well aware that Shenton had the ability to hypnotize others with a mere glance, and so she asked her buddy not to set her up. And by the way, he never answered the question she just asked. After adjusting his cylinder, the demon caster said that on that fateful day, all the residents of this street came to watch his mother being led outside the fortress. Some laughed, some shouted, but no one wanted to do anything to help. None of them said a word in defense of Shenton's mother, which meant that they were all guilty as they were all complicit in this crime. To make matters worse, the man in the cylinder knows that something terrible is approaching the 109th fortress. But the Li Consortium army that's supposed to defend the walls is holed up at the university due to the arrival of various forces. When disaster comes, who will defend the city? How many people will die at their hands? Whose responsibility will it be? The rebels, King, Yang, the source of the flame, which of them have the right to accuse Shenton? All of them, including the demon caster, are sinners. After listening to his interlocutor, Luo Xinyu asked if he would stop after he was able to take revenge. He should know that justice, though late, is never absent. However, Li Shentian explained to the blue-haired girl that there was a completely different meaning embedded in this saying. It says, "Justice delayed is justice denied." Be that as it may, Luo Xinyu still believes that justice that is vindicated by evil acts only dishonors it. What is the nature of superhumans according to Shenton? Smirking, the demon caster asked, "Isn't that what rebels like Luo Xinyu are all about? They are also trying to achieve justice through violence alone, right? When disaster strikes, it is the will of the spirit that is man's first weapon in the face of danger. But each person's understanding of the will of the spirit is different, and Li Shenton believes it lies solely in brain development." Looking puzzled at the man in the cylinder, the singer explained that brain development had been disproven before the disaster. Anything that has not been rigorously argued for is just a rumor. Therefore, without arguments, Shentian's words are just nothing. However, it works the other way around as well. People will not prove that brain development is a myth because they cannot claim to be using the brain to its full potential, since they still do not know which part of it is responsible for emotions. Regardless, the demon caster isn't sure if superhumans are discovering a new area of the brain or developing it as a whole, so for now it's best to call the phenomenon spirit will. Following the man with the cylinder, Xinyu observed that based on what he said, the stronger a superhuman's abilities were, the closer they were to self-destruction. Nodding, Shanton said that this was theoretically true. When brain development is 100% complete, humans will most likely realize the will of the gods. Decay will befall their own body, unable to become the bearer of a great will, or such a situation will arise when development reaches 70%. But apparently, there are exceptions. In any case, it is senseless to discuss it now, because people will know the answer only when the mankind grows up to it anyway. Stopping, the demon caster noticed that apparently Luo Xinyu didn't come to Li's place to chat with Shanten. So she should mind her own business, and if she didn't leave now, it might be too late. A lot of test subjects are already approaching the 109th fortress, and so the demon caster himself is going to stay here and see the destruction of this place with his own eyes. After listening to the recommendations of the man in the cylinder, Luo Xinyu immediately dissolved into space. Meanwhile, the test subjects and indeed were already climbing the walls of Fortress 109. Leaning on each other and forming a huge wave, the monsters hit the city's territory. In some places, the walls were breached, and the test subjects who broke into the fortress began attacking people. Panic was sown in the city, but for some reason the military was in no hurry to protect its citizens. At the same time, a portal appeared in Fortress 109 University. Luo Xinyu, who came out of it, holding a gun in her hand, looked around. There was no one inside the building anymore. The people of the Li Consortium were divided into several fronts at once, so they definitely didn't expect anyone to break into the university like this. After taking a closer look at the room, the singer noticed a hard drive standing on a display case. Deciding that the thing might have useful data on it, the girl smashed the display case with a shot. After taking the hard disk, Xinyu was about to head back to the Shadow Gate. Just as suddenly, the lights in the lab came on and the portal dissolved in the same second. The Shadow Gate doesn't work under a shadowless lamp. It only means that the Li Consortium set things up so that Luo Xinyu would fall into their trap. Nothing will happen to this girl if she sits here for a while. But what about Yang Xiaojin? The test subjects are on their way, and without the Shadow Gate, she won't be able to get outside the fortress grounds. While Xinyu was thinking about how she could get out of the trap, Xiao Su and the others were already running up to the western gate of the fortress. Noticing that the huge steel doors were locked, Liu Yuan asked his older brother how they could get through here. Asking the boy not to worry, Xiao Su revealed that he had brought a bomb with him just in case. Taking 4 cards out of his pocket, the guy showed them to his friends, thus perplexing them. Was this really the legendary bomb that Xiao Su had spent several nights making? Is it really going to work? What is this guy even going to do? Is he going to throw a quads at the gate, let it apologize and open? As soon as the boy put the cards to the gate, it immediately exploded. The explosion was of such magnitude that the huge iron gates flew outward with ease. Surprisingly, Xiao Su's way actually worked. Surprised by what he saw, Wang Fugui said that he had no idea before that playing poker was so dangerous. Taking his bicycle in his hands again, Xiao Su suggested that his friends leave the fortress as soon as possible and head north. But before crossing the west gate, the guy saw Yang Xiaojin standing on the rooftop nearby. Why is she here and still hasn't left? Deciding to check it out, the boy asked the others to go ahead while he himself would handle some matters in the fortress. Leaving Chen Wudi in charge, he told everyone to head north and not to look back. Continuing to hold the bike with one hand, Xiao Su turned around and ran back to the city. Looking after him, Fugui was once again convinced that Xiao Su was a very brave man. The fortress was about to collapse. Many people couldn't escape, and that was why he was rushing back to help them. Taking DeLong and following Ren Xiaosu was the best decision Fugui had ever made in his life. If he and his son were left alone, and even if they managed to survive the disaster in the 113th fortress, they would probably die in another disaster soon. The peaceful ones were still too dangerous. Ones were. Walking up to Liu Yuan, Sister Xiaoyu put her hand on his shoulder and asked if he was worried about his brother. Turning back to the girl, the boy explained that he was just wondering if he should remind his brother that he still carried bike on his shoulders. Then, heading towards the gate, Yuan told the others to keep heading north. His big brother is confident, and so they don't need to worry about him. Then, looking worriedly at the boy, Chen Wudi said that he was afraid that the mentor in this life would run off with another queen again. In that case, he would not be able to go to the west to get the scriptures. After calming down the gray-haired guy, Yuan promised that in that case, they would just take this queen with them. With a relieved exhale, Udi fell for the little brat's ploy once again. Soon, the entire team, including teacher Jiang Wu and her students, were on the other side of the fortress. After running a decent distance away from his squad, Xiao Su realized that he had been in such a hurry that he had forgotten to leave his bike for Liu Yuan and the others. The worst part was that the storage space had long since been filled with things to escape. They could no longer be thrown away. While the guy was wondering what he should do next with this bike, he heard someone screaming for help. Running towards him, the citizens of the city, trying to escape from the test subjects who had broken into the fortress, were asking for someone to help them. Looking at them, Xiao Su realized that it was probably only at this moment that the commoners realized what the world outside the fortresses was really like. During this time, everything outside changed by the hour and not by the day, while inside the fortress, everything remained the same. These people enjoyed a false sense of peace behind the walls, but the fortress that seemed to protect them simultaneously became a shackle to their own development. While pondering this, Xiaosu heard sniper rifle shots nearby. The corpse of a test subject flew down from the roof of one of the buildings. Yang Xiaojin had already entered the battle, trying to defend herself from the monsters with her rifle at the furthest possible distance. Killing the test subjects one by one, the girl couldn't understand why Luo Xinyu still hadn't returned from the university. Watching her shoot the monsters, Xiaosu realized that fortunately, Yang Xiaojin would still be able to cope for a while. In this case, the guy decided not to hesitate and rather rushed to the aid of his girlfriend. As she continued to fight off one after another of the surging opponents, Xiaojin saw a man she knew in the crowd of panicking people. Meanwhile, a man in the crowd noticed a guy running into town. He recognized him as the dude who had bought a lot of food 2 days ago. So he knew danger was coming. But if he knew about the attack of the test subjects, then why did he come back now? As Xiaosu continued running, he looked around and noticed that the monsters really didn't leave anyone alive and killed everyone in their path. Suddenly, 3 test subjects appeared right on the road in front of the boy. Deciding not to be ceremonious with them for long, the guy drew his sword. In the next second, with a single sharp lunge, Xiaosu chopped apart all of his opponents. It took the boy literally a few moments to finish off all the monsters around him. Running past him, Chao Yuki noticed what her former classmates had just done. Tugging her mom's sleeve, the girl said it was Ren Xiaosu, the same migrant she had forced to move to another class. Hearing that the student recognized the guy, the other residents asked the girl to tell him to save them all. Chao Yuki in turn told her mother that they should go after her former classmate. Ignoring them, Xiaosu immediately rushed towards Xiaojin. Suddenly, a task from the palace appeared in front of the guy again. Now he had to save the inhabitants of the fortress. At the same moment, the boy saw one of the subjects sitting in front of the wounded man. In the monster's hand was a syringe of some sort. Grabbing the exhausted man, the subject thrust this strange syringe into his neck. Seeing this, Xiaosu was finally convinced that these monsters were actually sentient. Not only did the subject not kill the man, but he turned him into a creature similar to himself. This means that the goal of these monsters is not only to get food and expand their colony, but also to completely occupy a new fortress to get fresh blood. They evolve very fast, and after capturing the 113th, the number of subjects increased so that they have the strength to devour the next fortress. Realizing that now was not the time to think about it, Xiaosu decided to get young Xiaojin out of here as soon as possible. Approaching one of the houses, the guy summoned a shadow doppelganger. The boy can't hear any more gunshots, and so it's likely that the monsters have already reached the roof. Most likely, young Xiaojin had already started fighting the opponents in close combat. Between the 2 points, the most perpendicular is the shortest segment, and so Xiaos will have to climb up the wall to take a shortcut. Climbing up the building, Xiaosu noticed 2 monsters climbing out of the windows. Pointing to their chopped-up brethren lying on the road, the guy asked these guys if they knew how many of their kind he had killed. However, as expected, these words did not make the opponents run away. Xiaosu hoped that with this kind of speech, he would scare the test subjects and they would just fail. Unfortunately, for some reason, they either couldn't understand human speech or were still too stupid to appreciate the danger of the situation. Be that as it may, the guy certainly won't have a hard time dealing with these two. The boy broke away from the wall of the building and pounced on his opponents, and in sync with his shadow, chopped off their heads. Instantly, the dead test subjects flew to the ground. Xiaosu himself was able to stay on the wall thanks to his shadow clone, who was able to grab onto the ledge of one of the building's windows. Climbing onto the shadow clone's back again, the guy told him to get on the roof sooner rather than later. It took literally seconds for the boy to reach the roof of the building. After scattering, the shadow clone flew into the sky at a tremendous speed. Landing on the roof of a residential building, Xiaosu was finally at the place where the real battle would soon begin. Once on the rooftop, the guy saw young Xiaojin sitting on the edge and shooting away from the monsters. Beside her, there were about 6 or 7 subjects standing there. Looking at this entire scene, Xiaosu realized that this was the first time he was facing so many test subjects at once. Fortunately, he had a shadow, and so there should be no problem dealing with them. "Shoo, kill them all!" uttered the boy, jumping down from the shadow clone. Smirking, the exhausted Xiaojin guy, isn't Shu Xianchu already 100 miles away? Be that as it may, unfortunately, this girl will no longer be able to fight as she is badly injured. But that didn't matter much to Xiaosu. Ask your friend for a rest. The boy promised to get her out of here right after he dealt with those test subjects. Having said that, along with his shadow guy, he immediately pounced on the opponents. Meanwhile, the university's stranded Luo Xinyu tried to shoot through the hatch glass to get out of the lab. However, it turns out that this glass is bulletproof. The test subjects are already inside the fortress. If the girl can't get out, Xiao Jin will be in danger. Just as suddenly, the singer heard Luo Lan's voice behind her at the door behind her. Fatty Luo is already here, and this is a good chance for Xinyu. If the light source goes out, when Lan enters the lab, the girl will have a good chance to open the shadow gate and leave. At the same time, threatening one of the lab workers with a gun, Tangzhou waits for him to open the door. Starting to get visibly nervous, Luo Lan told the hostage to rather open the door with the code if he didn't want to get shot in the forehead. Soon, the door leading to the lab did indeed open. With a wave of his hand, Fatty Luo allowed the scientist to get the hell out of here. And when the lab worker asked if he really wasn't going to be killed, Lan explained that he wasn't being empty-headed. This scientist's life is not that important, but Fatty Luo's reputation is. So if the scientist wants to stay alive, he'd better go now. Without objecting to Luo Lan, the lab worker silently headed towards the university's exit. Meanwhile, upon entering the lab, a surprised Fatty Luo noticed a familiar person there. Looking at him with a smile, Luo Xinyu opened the portal and was already ready to leave the room. However, pointing the flashlight at the girl, Lan shouted that he wouldn't just let her escape. In the same second, Xinyu's shadow gate dissolved. Fatty Luo still hasn't gotten revenge on this girl for the day she hit him on the head. Now she's going to take his treasure and run away in front of him? Luckily, Lan had brought a flashlight with him specifically for such an occasion to prevent her from escaping. Holding out his hand, the man ordered the singer to give him the file. Showing Fatty Luo the hard drive, Xinyu said that she would destroy the thing if he didn't get off her back. However, Lan reminded the girl that her friend was still in the fortress. The test subjects are still advancing, and if Xinyu doesn't help her, she definitely won't survive. All the singer has to do to keep her friend alive is to give up the hard drive. Realizing that she has no other chance to save Xiao Jin, the blue-haired girl decides to take a risk and trust Luo Lan. Taking a step forward, the singer tossed the hard disk to the fat man Luo. Thanking the girl for her cooperation, Lan turned off the flashlight, saying he was a man of his word. Now she could go save her friend. Without saying anything in response, Xinyu immediately opened the shadow gate and ran inside. Once on the rooftop that Yang Xiaojin was on not long ago, the girl saw many corpses of test subjects. It seems that her friend has already been rescued by someone. In any case, even so, it would be hard for them to get out of the fortress now. Walking to the edge of the roof, Xinyu looked around the city trying to figure out where they might be hiding. At the same time, somewhere in the sewers of Fortress 109, originally, when Xiaosu entered the battle, he thought that there would be about 6 or 7 opponents. But the guy had no idea that the sounds of battle would attract 5 more individuals. Suddenly bursting into battle, the subjects took the boy by surprise and wounded him not too badly with their sharp claws. But even this situation didn't stop Xiao's from staying sane. After returning from all the attacks of the newly arrived opponents, the guy performed a lightning-fast attack, easily finishing them all off. After winning this battle, the boy picked up his wounded friend and traveled with his shadow clone to the safest place in the city. Looking at Ren Xiaosu, Xiaojin decided to ask some question. She wondered where they were now. Thinking about it, the boy thought it was a good question. In general, they are now in the sewers. But seriously, the boy doesn't know where exactly. That's when the girl in the cap realized that this dude didn't seem to be badly hurt, or else he wouldn't have had the presence of mind to say such nonsense. However, Xiaosu looked at his friend in bewilderment and was surprised that she called it nonsense. He was being serious. Deciding to take a break, the guy asked Xiao Jin why Luo Xinyu didn't pick her up. Lowering her gaze, the girl in the cap explained that maybe something had happened to her. If it wasn't some accident, her friend would definitely come. Such a statement greatly alarmed Xiaosu. Tensely looking at the shadow clone, the guy thanked Mr. Shu Xianchu for his help. Laughing, Xiao Jin asked her friend not to make her laugh, reminding her that she was actually injured. But the boy explained that Old Man Shu had come back 100 kilometers away to save them. Shouldn't they thank him? Unfortunately for her friend, Xiao Jin and her organization had placed a beacon on Shu Xianchu's body. This morning, the man crossed the Tungsten Mountains and headed northwest to the 178th fortress, the direction that Ren Xiaosu himself had told him to go. And when the girl said that she remembered Xiaosu mentioning Zhang Jinglin, the angry guy asked why they were following Shu Xianchu in the first place. Asking her buddy not to change the subject, Xiao Jin revealed that she hadn't thought about it before. But now she was convinced that the person she saw in the Jing Mountains was obviously Xiao Su. But the Qing Consortium was never interested in this guy. Instead, they kept assigning huge rewards for Xu Xianchu. Considering everything that had happened previously, it was safe to say that Ren Xiaosu's superpower was to copy other people's abilities. That's all. It seems that the secret that Xiaosu had tried his best to hide was now truly revealed.
Pet the cat.